If you aren't lost looking at benchmark numbers, don't really care about the theoretical performance of your phone, but rather want something that gives you a great user experience, these two phones do just that. Priced solidly in the mid-range, are these phones the go-to at their price points? The answer is a little complicated. If this is your first time here, or in case you just can't remember, my name's Ash, and now that I've spent almost 20 days with this phone as my primary, let me walk you through why I feel you should or should not buy these phones. Last year, when Nothing launched the 2A Plus, there was one thing that kind of bothered me. You know what? Let me cut to that part.
Personally, I didn't like the fact that they launched the 2A and just a few months later they're launching a 2A Plus that's more expensive. And I told Nothing that on call, and they explained that both phones were supposed to launch together, but as a smaller brand, they had growing pains issues sourcing parts that led to delays.
And that is what they've done this year. They've launched both models at the same time, and it makes sense. They are effectively the same phone. The 3A Pro, it just has a slightly better camera system. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the design here, because love it or hate it, aesthetics is definitely one of the most talked about aspects of Nothing's phones. Now the phone 3A, it's available in 3 colors. I got the white though. If you ask me, the blue, it looks best. And the choice to keep the bright color option for the vanilla phone with the Pros looking more mundane. It feels like a very Apple thing to do. I would have definitely liked to see a brighter color option for the Pros. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Now that said, the design for both these phones, it is unique. Now some people seem to not like the camera array, especially on the Pro. Personally, I like it. The Fibonacci spiral, the golden ratio, that is what they're going for. And I also found the lil phone, the camera array, cute. So we still have the glyph LEDs surrounding the camera array, and while they've changed some of the patterns that come underneath, it all does feel quite familiar. What is new though, is the fact that the back, it's now glass, Panda glass, both the front and back. And given these are both flat and the sides are too, the build, it is boxy. And the phone, it feels a little wide to hold, but the weight is manageable, and especially on the Pro that I've been using, the camera array, it's at just the right height so that you can comfortably rest your fingers. I didn't have an issue there. Where I had an issue is, as always, it is Nothing, so there's literally nothing in the box. No charger, no included case. In fact, even the Type-C to Type-C cable, it's not the cool braided transparent cable anymore. The simple still looks cool though. Anyways, the back, like I said, is glass instead of plastic. The IP rating has gone up to IP64 from 5.4. The display is also now brighter, goes up to 3000 nits for HDR. Even under auto mode, it outputs 1300 nits instead of 1100. And it's not just that, the display itself is also larger at 6.77 inches. There's variable refresh between 30 to 120 Hz. In a lot of ways, when you're using this display, it feels kind of flagshipy. Now, don't get me wrong, this phone is not one to punch above its weight class. It definitely isn't. It is not something that's gonna give you the best price to performance ratio, but what it has going for it is the software. Nothing OS here, it's pretty lightweight and free of bloat. It gets the most out of the chip on the inside. With day-to-day use, the phone 3A, it felt very smooth and responsive. Now I switched to this phone from the OnePlus 13, and I can honestly say, with the day-to-day, it never felt like I'd taken a considerable step down. Though that is just what I felt, because in reality, I had taken a considerable step down. The chip here on both the 3A and the 3A Pro, it's the Snapdragon 7S Gen 3, and the S here indicates that it is a cut down version of the 7 Gen 3 at a price point where we have phones with yesteryear's 8 series chip and even the much better 7 Plus Gen 3. The horsepower on this one, it's definitely lacking. So if you are looking for a performance powerhouse for gaming, this is definitely not the right choice. I mean, it can run games and manages to do so without heating up or anything, but there definitely are other phones out there that will do better. Also, UFS 2.2 and LPDDR4X at this price, not great. But then again, Nothing is not trying to offer the best raw performance for the money. What they are trying to do is provide the best experience in the segment. And that, I feel, is something they actually have done. This phone, it's running on Nothing OS 3.1 built atop Android 15. They're offering 3 years of Android version updates and 6 years of security patches, which for the segment isn't really bad. And the software, like I said, it's very responsive. Nothing seems to have paid a lot of attention to the little things. When you use the phone day to day, the animations you see, the smoothness when you say switch between different apps, the monochrome icons across the interface, the little stuff. It runs it all well without frame drops or stutters. It offers a very consistent user experience. Now, of course, given the specs aren't top-notch, occasionally when you come across a heavy app, usually a game, you'd notice the difference. The phone will stutter for a second, it will wait for something to launch. But given I rarely game on my phone, it is not something I commonly experienced. Also, the total lack of any kind of ads or preloaded bloat, that was very refreshing to see. Now, talking about things that aren't there, AI-related stuff. These days it's very common for every manufacturer to throw in some kind of AI tools, and nothing hasn't really done that. So there's no AI image generation, there is no object removal. What they have added though is this extra button to the side. They're calling this the Essential key. Double pressing it brings up Essential Space. So it's basically a little area to save screenshots with some text or voice notes. Now here's what I did and didn't like about it. I like the fact that the button feels different. After about 2 days with this phone, I stopped accidentally hitting it instead of the power key, and that's because it's got a different shape and a different size compared to the power button, so it's easy to identify which one is which, even blind. I also liked how they've implemented it, like a single press causes you to take a screenshot and gives you an option to add a note. A long press of that button lets you take a screenshot and record a voice note that is later transcribed. And here, contextually, if you wanted a reminder added, it does that for you. And then a double press of this button easily gets you to Essential Space, where you can take a look at everything that you saved. What I did not like is the fact that you can't really do anything with these. You can't really share them. You're essentially limited to, using Essential Space. When I brought this up to Akis from Nothing, he said it's basically in beta, it's a work in progress. They take the feedback and implement it whenever they would. But that is basically what it is. It is a beta feature. It's gotten me intrigued enough by the concept of it, but I still feel there's a way to go before it's something I'd consider using consistently. Now, one thing I feel Nothing's really nailed here on both these phones is the battery aspect of it. They both feature 5000 mAh batteries, and they both charge a little faster now at 50 watts, meaning 50% in under 20 minutes and a full charge in under an hour. And it's not just the charging speed, the battery life on the Pro that I've been using a lot, it's been excellent. Given the SoC isn't all that power hungry, with my kind of moderate use, I easily ended most of my days with 40-45% left in the tank. Moving on to optics, both phones, they share the same ultra-wide cameras, an 8-megapixel Sony sensor, and there really isn't much to talk about here. Yes, this 8-megapixel sensor is a downgrade from the 50-megapixel one on this phone's predecessor, but it's not the end of the world. It's still a decent ultra-wide that we've seen on many phones in the past, and it gets the job done. Now there is a difference between both phones. They both use 50-megapixel Samsung sensors. The Pro, it's slightly larger, but that said, in practice, I didn't really notice a lot of difference between pictures taken by both. The images usually were pretty detailed as long as there was ample light, and colors seemed accurate, no weird saturation boosts. I liked the dynamic range too. Under low light, here's where you definitely notice you were shooting with a mid-ranger, regardless of if you were shooting on the Vanilla 3A or the Pro, but the results, as you can see, they were still quite usable. Now the telephoto is where the big difference is at. The Pro's 3x periscope lens, it gives it a considerable advantage over the 2x lens on the vanilla version. Also, the 50-megapixel selfie shooter does fare better. It lets you shoot 4K video, something the Vanilla 3A's 32-megapixel camera doesn't. So overall, my take here, at their respective asking prices, the 3A and the 3A Pro are pretty good phones. They look unique, they offer a very good user experience, but they definitely are not the best value phones, especially if you're looking at something performance heavy. If a solid day-to-day use smartphone that gets you a close to flagship experience for regular use with a good display, acceptable optics, and excellent battery life, if that is what you're looking for, the Phone 3a and the 3a Pro, they might just be a good fit for you. And between these two, I kinda like the 3a a little more because I don't feel they're offering anything pro enough on the Pro to warrant that price difference between them. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Ash out.